Yo, yo, yo. Yerp. Welcome to Zone 864 TV. I'm your host, Zone. We are here in the late night, early wee hours of the morning. We are on live in the booty clapping hours. It's almost 3:30 a.m. West Coast. You know what I'm saying? 3:30 a.m. West Coast time, man. You know what I'm saying? About 6:30 a.m. East Coast. Everybody getting up for work on the East Coast. Y'all know how I do it, man. Y'all know how I do it, man. I come through on the late night, man. You know what I'm saying? I let everybody have the daytime. You know what I'm saying? I let everybody do their streams and videos in the daytime and all that. You know what I'm saying? But make sure y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if this is your first time here. Hit that notification bell so you get the notification every time I go live or I drop a video. And I just want to say this out the gate, man. Listen, I might not leave this video up on YouTube. So make sure that y'all subscribe to my Rumble. Hold on, let me put that in the chat. Hold on. Yeah. All right. So make sure that y'all subscribe to my Rumble, because that is where all of the replays are. So if I do a live stream on YouTube and you cannot find the live stream on YouTube, it's probably going to be on Rumble. You feel me? I don't leave all of my content on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes, you know, I be speaking the truth. You know, I be telling it like it is. You know what I'm saying? I be saying real ish. You know, and YouTube has some strict guidelines. So, you know, as a monetized channel, it is my duty to protect my brand, to protect my business. So that's why I sometimes take my content from YouTube and put it exclusively on Rumble. You feel what I'm saying? But like I said, make sure y'all hit that like button. We're going to be talking about a recent NOLAN WELLS case update. And then we're also going to be looking at a video of Brandon Tatum debating. It was really supposed to be an interview, but it turned into a debate because, you know, a lot of times when ninjas don't want to accept the fact that they're not always right, when ninjas don't want to accept the fact that there are more knowledgeable people in this world with a point of view that's actually better than their point of view, everything turns into a debate. Because some ninjas just don't want to accept that some dudes are smarter than they are, or they just have a better perspective than they do. And obviously here on YouTube, you know, you got a lot of content creators, and then you have a lot of content creators, and then you have fans. These content creators actually have fans. So when these content creators have fans, right, and their favorite content creator is debating another content creator, and their favorite content creator is losing a debate, then it goes into an argument, because you can't tell these ninjas nothing. Because a lot of these ninjas with microphones think that they know everything, and they're not open to learning new information, new knowledge. They're not open to hearing a new perspective, a perspective that's different than theirs. And this ninja Brandon Tatum is one of them ninjas, man. He's one of these narcissist ass ninjas that no matter, you could have the cure for cancer and he's still going to tell you that you're wrong. You could have the formula to solve world hunger, even though I believe we already have the formula. You can have the formula to solve world hunger, and he's still going to tell you that the formula is wrong. That's the type of ninja that Brandon Tatum is. So we're going to be taking a look at that. But before we get in that, we're going to take a look at this quick video with Don Lemon. And I believe this is the president of the NAACP. This is the most recent Nolan Wells case update. So make sure y'all hit the like button. Am I even at, I'm not even at the right place. Man, I'll be so unprepared, so ghetto. Oh, see, and then they want to hit me with a commercial right away. Damn. It's like that. Damn, hold on, y'all. Actually, let's go to the other screen. There we go. There we go. Okay. So again, this is Don Lemon and the president of the NAACP with the most recent Nolan Wells case update. Let's go.
Why are you getting involved? Why is the organization getting involved?
Wait.
T. Johnson, who is the CEO of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Mr. Johnson, thank you for joining us. Why are you getting involved? Why is the organization getting involved?
I think it's important for the family and the community to get answers. The local officials, state of Mississippi, have not been as transparent as they should have been. Now that we have Kristen Clark as our general counsel, who served as DOJ head of Civil Rights Division, she's familiar with the procedures that should be in place. We have strong relationship with retired law enforcement officers on the ground, and we need some transparency from our local officials and give the family some answers.
There has been this narrative that was put out there, and I think they're trying to knock it down, which I believe was unfairly put out, saying that the family was somehow stonewalling investigators. But according to the letter, if you read the letter that they released this morning, they said, this is exactly what we agreed upon in July. And so, I don't understand why this information has been put out there. And that's all part of the investigation. What do you make of that?
So basically, in a nutshell, as we proceed, this is the president of the NAACP. So the NAACP is now getting involved in the Nolan Wells case. So we got more eyes on the case, more resources on the case. So that's what this interview is with Don Lemon. Let's go.
There's more time been spent on deflecting the fact that there has not been a thorough investigation that the public have trust and believe in. If there's been a thorough investigation, great. If there's a grand jury where information is going to be provided, that's great. But at this juncture, local officials should not be deflecting what's really taking place. We're talking about a state with a history of not valuing African-American life. We're talking about a state that spends more time worried about the perception of its past as opposed to reconciling the current reality and doing what's necessary. A child never returned home. A child got on a boat with a group of friends. A child phone came back with a friend, and that child, the next time we see the child, he's unalive. There are some questions that need to be answered. We have a sheriff who made assumptions before an investigation was done based on the words of the individuals that child was with. This should not be the case. There needs to be a complete and thorough investigation.
How does the NAACP getting involved help?
Well, it broadens the ability of individuals who are receiving information. We have a bigger net. I live in Mississippi, so there are some deep relationships there. You have the former head of the Department of Justice and Rights Division with experience in this background and deep contacts. So it allowed us, along with the Trump team, to try to assist the family in getting the necessary answers. Because apparently the state of Mississippi and local officials have not been as transparent as one would have liked them to be, or they're simply doing things that's out of the view and has lost the confidence of not only the family, but that community who has been affected.
And for the record, I just want to put this out there. This is not my sound. I know y'all hear like a lot of, it sounds very mumbly, but it is not my sound. That is the dude that's speaking. That's on his end. It's not my end. So I apologize for the quality of the sound, but it's not on my end. It's on his end. Let's go.
You live in Mississippi, as you said. Can you understand if let's just say there is some hesitation, which I think there is, because they want a joint investigation. Otherwise, they would just say if they had confidence in the investigators, they may not do this. But this is standard procedure to have, a filter team go over to set parameters on what you can look for between a certain timeline and all things, some things that may be privileged on the phone, some things that may not even, relate to what's happening. They want to make sure that that's out and they just don't have everything and start spreading rumors and stuff about NOLAN WELLS. So, I think that is pretty standard procedure. I'm not sure why people don't understand that. Maybe they're not steeped in the law. They just don't, deal with these things much. However, you could, coming from I was about to say Louisiana because that's where I'm from, from Mississippi, can you understand the hesitancy, if there is, from this family to turn that phone over?
Well, the question around the phone is separate from the level of confidence that local officials have built with the family by communicating with them, being transparent with them, and allow them some level of insights. It is without question that the parents had nothing to do with the disappearance and then the discovery of NOLAN WELLS. But there is a lot to be desired in terms of all the people who last saw him. And the fact that the local officials was not open with the parents, not sharing progress, and pretty much shutting the parents out. That's why we at this juncture. How things proceed from now and the parents' hesitancy is all based on that initial 2 weeks and lack of communications with them to really build the type of trust and confidence that those investigating was taking this case serious and looking to figure out what exactly happened.
Do you have an idea? I don't know if you want to articulate that about what you think happened or?
No, we're not here with any preconceived notion. If it was an accident, let's figure out. This was an accident. This was happening. If there's something more to it, let's figure it out. So we don't come here with a preconceived notion of some type of foul play or cover up. We are saying this community, that family deserve answers. And that's why we are part of it.
I want to know what you think of the friends doing interviews and also not somehow, they're not even insinuating. One of them is saying that they're getting the.
Here's the thing. I think that is a strong possibility. I'm not saying that I'm 100%. I think it's a strong possibility that is foul play. And the reason that I say that is because if nothing foul happened, right? Why do these dudes, Warren, Wyatt, Bart, why do these dudes need legal representation? Why is everybody lawyered up like so quickly? Why are they trying to put out so many interviews, like trying to clear their name? Because here's the thing, if no foul play really happened, then the investigation needs to be a clean, thorough investigation. If no foul play really happened, that's the whole problem that I have with this. NOLAN WELLS was found deceased or went missing on July 4th, 2026. Here we are a little over a month later. Rest in peace, Nolan Wells. He's already been laid to rest, or they already had the ceremony or whatever, right? But that's my whole thing, right? Is that if nothing happened, why not cooperate with authority? Here's the thing. If these were my kids, I would be telling them, yo, don't be doing no interviews. You ain't saying nothing. Shout out to Izzy Bands in the building. Shout out to Izzy Bands in the building. I would be telling these kids, don't be saying nothing. Y'all ain't doing no interviews. Y'all ain't talking to no Brandon Tatum. Y'all ain't talking to no Nancy. What's her name? Nancy Grace. Y'all ain't talking to, this ABC Good Morning America. If y'all want to do an interview, and if y'all really rock with Nolan, if y'all really love Nolan the way that y'all say that y'all rock with Nolan, then after the investigation is over and after it comes out that there was no foul play, then y'all can go do interview. Then y'all can sit down and, do your press runs and all of that kind of stuff. But while this investigation is going on for us to figure out if there was foul play with Nolan Wells or not, y'all need to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. That's what I would tell my kids. But these kids is doing interviews left and right, trying to clear their name. If it was really no foul play, it's going to come out in an investigation, point blank, period. That's the whole problem that I have with this, is that they keep trying to do these interviews and try to clear their name. But how can you clear your name if the investigation is not complete? Because what if they do all these interviews and it comes out that one of them really did have something to do with the fact that Nolan ended up deceased? This whole thing is like crazy, man. There's no way it should be going on this long. This thing should have been wrapped up, sealed, and done already. There's no way it should be over 30 days later, over a month later, and we still talking about this, man. It's crazy.
Treatment that they're getting, they're under the spotlight because of Nolan Wells' mom. Watch this.
Wait, what? Look at this. Select AI video.
Oh, my bad, y'all.
CDance 2.5.
They're trying to hit us with a commercial.
His mom blasting us on social media from the get-go, saying that he was out there with Warren and another guy. That's where it first started to take off. And then also the fact that she posted a picture of me and Morgan and another guy and Nolan on the boat together, blasting that out there, pushing this narrative, kind of, I guess. I wish that would have never happened either. And I don't think if those would have never happened, a lot of this stuff wouldn't have been as viral or gone all over the country at this point. I mean, this is a countrywide news story that is just blown out of proportion. And the fact that it was our best friend and it's not what people are saying it is.
Okay, so you get it. They're saying
most.
his mom blasted them on social media. You're muted. Say, repeat.
Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right. Her son is dead. They were not forthcoming to explain what happened to him. He had been missing. She had been inquiring. No one told her anything. They came back with his cell phone, but not him. She's grieving. No one is giving her answers. No one is.
Shout out to Chanel in the building. Let's go.
Responding to what happened to my son. And so this concept that somehow they're now the victim because she's pursuing answers. They're now the victims because she raised the conversation. And the conversation is now a national and in many ways global conversations.
And that's another thing that pisses me off about this whole Nolan Wells situation. This is what I'm saying? Like, here's the thing, right? As a father, I would be devastated if anything happens to my child, like what happened to Nolan Wells, right? Like what happened to Carmelo Anthony. I would be devastated. I don't want to bury my child. right? My children need to be burying me. I don't want to have to do no time behind bars with my child. I want my child to be free in this world, thriving, healthy, happy, living his or her life. Well, I got daughters, you know what I mean, but living their lives, you know what I'm saying? And it's crazy that Nolan Wells' mother is getting so much pushback. Because here's the thing, as fathers, we're gonna feel some type of way about our child, right? But the mother carries the child. The mother has a connection with the child, right? That in a way that even fathers don't get me wrong, right? I'm not trying to place women over the man and, you know, the whole gender banging and all of that. And, you know what I'm saying? Like both the mother and father have their pivotal things that they need to be doing in their roles, right? But what I'm saying is that the woman carries the child for 9 months, right? So it's a connection in a way that the father is not going to understand. The mother is going to have a connection. Like mothers can sense things in their children from like there's been times that my mother has called me randomly, sporadically. I live in Arizona. My mother lives in South Carolina. There have been times where my mother has called me randomly, sporadically, out of the blue, and she's saying, yo, son, are you all right? Are you good? Sometimes we don't even speak for weeks and months at a time, and I need to get better with that. You know what I'm saying? And I love my mom. You know what I'm saying? We have our issues, but I love my mom. I just want to put that out there on air, man. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm getting older and I ain't trying to carry these old problems into my age and all of that kind of stuff. We have our issues, whatever. I love my mom, point blank, period. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I would defend her at all costs, point blank, period. It don't matter what kind of problems we have. Point blank, period. I love my mom. I love my dad. I love my family. I love my kids. Point blank, period. That's just how I feel, right? Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe I'm getting more mature because 10 years ago, I wouldn't be talking like I talk right now. You know what I'm saying? But this is just how I feel right now. You feel what I'm saying? But mothers have a connection with their children in a way that fathers just won't understand, because we ain't the one carrying the baby. We ain't the one pushing the baby out. We ain't the one having our umbilical cord snapped and breastfeeding and all of this kind of stuff. We got to get out here and grind. But the mother is right there nurturing the baby from the time the baby is born to the time the baby just gets out into the real world, becomes an adult, start living their life. So women, the mothers just have a different kind of connection. And I know that Nolan's mother is in a pain and in a space right now that most of us men, most of us people just cannot understand, man. So it really pisses me off every time people go at the mother just because they have a problem with the fact that we don't know if this thing is foul play or if it was just something that happened accidentally. You know what I'm saying? Izzy Band says in the chat, absolutely, and pray we never have to deal with nothing like that. Much prayers and love to the families that have to deal with that. Absolutely. Let's go.
So it is unfortunate that any mother will have to go through the exercise of saying, my son is missing. And it appeared as if no one was caring. And the last people he was with have a cell phone, but they are not providing any response to what happened to her child. They are not the victim. Her child is no longer with us.
I think it's odd because they're making it seem like, and I reported this last week, I said it on social media and I said it here, as if Christine Wansley Wells is on trial. She's not on trial. She lost her son. And if that is indeed your friend, and you may consider him your friend, okay, but if that is indeed your friend, why are you blasting the mom? Why are you blasting his mother? I don't understand it.
That is absolutely insane to me. That is absolutely insane to me. Like, okay, right, I get it. Warren, Bart, Trayston. I get it. You guys are under investigation. Y'all are men though. So you gotta weather this shit like men. Let that mother say whatever she gotta say. Let her mourn however she gotta mourn. You don't come out here and say that she's lying or she shouldn't be talking. That is her son. Even if you disagree with what she say, let her say whatever she got to say. You know why? Because the investigation still has to go on. The parents don't know what happened. This is why they're doing so many interviews. This is why the parents have so much to say, because they don't know what happened. So you got to let them say whatever they're going to say. And you got to be a man, and you have to respect Nolan's parents. If you really love Nolan, if Nolan really was your guy, you're going to respect Nolan's parents. Not only are you going to respect Nolan's parents, you're going to love Nolan's parents, and you're going to have discernment, and you're going to have empathy for Nolan's parents if you really rock and love and respect Nolan. That's how I see it.
Well,
Do you think it's a good strategy for them, the lawyers, and for them to be doing this?
You know, to go on that show and to have those responses, was that coaching? Was that preparing for some type of legal piece to shift the blame, to shift the narrative, to take the attention off the fact that her son went on a boat with them, but he never returned, and no one is giving answers, and the explanation has been provided.
And here's the thing about that. Listen, I'm not saying that I believe that there's some type of foul play that happens some kind of way with some kind of way. Even if it wasn't a lot of foul play, I believe it was a little foul play. I mean, it's already been proven that they was, drinking alcohol. It's already been proven. Well, allegedly there may have been like drugs involved, pills, you know what I'm saying? All of that. But I definitely know that there was alcohol involved. Because I think it was Warren even admitted it in one of his interviews with Officer Tatum. This is crazy, man. Let's go. Oh, shout out to Izzy Bands in the building. Izzy, I will put the super chat on the screen, but I'm working in OBS, so I have to install the plugin to let me do that. But the next time I go live, I should be able to put that on the screen. But shout out with Izzy with the $5 donation. He says, facts. Salute my bro. Great stream. I appreciate that. Appreciate the donation from Mr. Izzy Bands.
Doesn't seem as plausible. But maybe there is some plausibility to it, but that's why we need a thorough investigation to figure out.
I want to ask you about this. This content creator has been defending the young men and also, saying questionable things about the mom. Here it is.
Bombshell tonight in the Nolan Wells investigation. Tonight, the timeline seemingly blows up. This as Nolan's mother is investigated. Why? And tonight, possibly even more important, where is Nolan's phone?
Well, from my understanding, authorities do not have it, and the family have not been cooperating with authorities to give the phone over.
So first of all, let me stop it right there. That's a lie. That's a lie. First and foremost, the family actually has been working with authorities to turn the phone over. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just give you some information that I learned from this. Well, actually, I already knew this information, but this case just confirmed it for me. If there's ever a situation where authorities, police officers, FBI, I don't care, CIA, I don't care who it is. If there's ever a situation where authorities need your phone to be able to look at evidence and look at metadata, look at, logins, locations, stuff like that, you don't just give your phone over to a cop. What you do is you work it out with a lawyer, and your lawyer is the one that hands your phone over to the authorities, over to the police, FBI, whatever. You don't the police, the FBI, they cannot just confiscate your phone. Now, if you give them your phone, they can just go through your phone and look at whatever's in there and take whatever's in there. But the reason that you would give your phone to your to the proper people first, to like a transfer team, is so that they can actually manipulate the information in the phone, and they can find out exactly what the police want to look at, so that they can make it so that the police can only look at what they need to see. Because here's the thing. Yes, the police, we pay, the police work for us. The police get paid off of tax dollars, but we're not going to sit here and act like the police is not dirty and grimy, especially in Jackson, Mississippi. And we all know the relationship that Mississippi in general has with black people. So absolutely not. So what he's saying is a lie. The family has absolutely been in contact with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and they actually are working with lawyers to turn in Nolan's phone for the investigation. They just not handing it over right away because they ain't stupid. So that's a lie right out the gate.
Brandon, you may very well be a lot smarter than me, but I can hear, okay?
Commercial break. Make sure y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Let's go.
Was we're prepared to cooperate, I guess, from Crump.
But it's best to have both cloud and the phone.
Okay.
To paint.
So he's been basically the interviewer. He's a far right-wing commentator who's, in many people's eyes, and I don't even know if I need to qualify it that way, is anti-black, even though he's black. He's always defending, white folks and talking shit about black people. I don't know another way to put it. And it seems like he's doing that with this particular story because nobody knows what happened. He doesn't know what's going on, right? And nobody's, as you said, we have no preconceived, at least I do, no preconceived notions about whether the young men were involved. However, their strategy is very questionable, and I'm not sure who's advising them. I guess that their attorneys and their parents are advising them, but I think it's a bad strategy. But this, he says he's an ex-officer or whatever. What do you make of his performance and what he's been doing?
Well, I wonder who's paying him, or is this about clicks? And it's unfortunate. We are entering here to try to be a part of a solution to help the parents get answers, to allow their community to understand what took place. For all we know, this could be a complete accident and people are panicking and if that's the case, let's show that. Whatever the case is, we should all be lining up to pursue answers for that community and the family, and not point fingers, particularly if for some of the people who've been commentating on social media.
If Nolan was, I hate to say this, man, because, people always be like, you play the race card, you're just, you're continuing that same propaganda, that same negative, stereotypical propaganda. If Nolan was white, this case would have been solved already. This investigation would have been thoroughly investigated already. If Nolan was white, this wouldn't even be going on. The whole reason that we have to put so many eyes and we have to, get Ben Crump involved, Al Sharpton, the NAACP, the whole reason and I'm pretty sure it's more people, Judge Mathis, I'm pretty sure more people gonna get involved. The whole reason we got to get involved is because they not really moving the way that they should with this. They not moving with a sense of urgency. They not moving like this is important. You see what I'm saying? If Nolan was a non-black young man, this would have been resolved already. We wouldn't even be having this conversation and doing all of these live streams, and we wouldn't even be talking about this. This would have been solved so quick. This would have been solved before Nolan's body was cold in the ground. If Nolan was a non-black man. That's why so many eyes on this situation, because we already know, due to the history in America, when it comes to injustices and, police brutality, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, we already know the South has a bad history when it comes to overall. I'm not saying it's like that today, but it kind of is still like that in certain pockets of the South. We're not going to sit here and we're not going to act like the South doesn't have a bad history when it comes to the treatment of black people. We're not going to skip over that. If Nolan was a non-black man, this case would have been done, closed, solved already.
They've never been to the community or into Mississippi. So
Right.
the question is this about clicks or is this about someone paying him?
Derek G. Johnson. Derek, thank you. And I
Yeah, and this is about clicks, and this is about getting paid for Officer Tatum. Officer Tatum don't care about Nolan Wells. He just really doing this for the clicks and the money. He don't even really care about the truth. All he cares is he's trying to use that conservative lane, and he's trying to use that conservative Christian lane, and he's trying to somehow prove that black people are saying that racism is, you know what I mean? He's trying to prove that racism is fake. And he's basically, Officer Tatum is basically the new Charlie Kirk, but he's black. And basically, he's going to replace Charlie Kirk. This is Officer Tatum's whole angle. He's the new Charlie Kirk in blackface. That's who Officer Tatum is. Let's go.
you're prepared to carry this all the way through, right? Now that you're involved.
But we typically don't get involved with these type of issues. It's not the role of the association, but unfortunately, we see a value of being involved now because Kristen Clark, who oversaw the Civil Rights Division, because proximity to what happened and knowledge around the local area. And so that's why we're getting involved. We're not doing this for any other reason but to get answers for the family and that community. And I want to thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Oh, thank you for appearing. Thank you. And it was good to be with you at the CBC last week or the week before, whenever we were there.
Okay, all right. That's the end of that. They just about to get into semantics and catching up about old times. So that is the end of that. Now we're going to take a look at the actual.
All right.
We're going to take a look at the actual interview with Brandon Tatum. Dang, come on, YouTube. Hold on. Okay. All right. YouTube be adjusting. All right, so we're going to take a look at that.
So you want to start a podcast, but you're not sure.
Man, YouTube be killing it with these commercials, man. All right, hold up. I'm trying to make sure. Let me see here. Hold on, y'all. Trying to make sure I get the right starting point here. Okay, I think we should be good there. All right, let's go. Make sure y'all hit that like button, man. Appreciate everybody rocking with me this late or early. You know what I'm saying? It's 4 a.m. West Coast time, Mountain Standard Time. Make sure y'all hit that like button. If you're just now waking up, getting ready to go to work, make sure you make that coffee. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you get the notification every time I go live or drop a video. Let's go.
One of the leading voices in the right-wing movement here in America. And he has been controversial.
So this is a psychotherapist, content creator by the name of Elliot Connie.
At times, but I think it's time to have a very appropriate conversation. So everybody, let's welcome Mr. Brandon Tatum. How you doing, Mr. Tatum?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I appreciate you being here, man. So I'd like to get started by asking about your origin of how you started developing conservative ideas.
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. You know, I grew
Excellent.
up in an all-black neighborhood. I grew up around people who believed the Democrat Party was the only party sustainable for the black community.
And first of all, for the record, I just want to put out there, we probably going to be here for at least another hour or so, because this interview is at least an hour long. So we probably going to be here at least another hour. But yes, I zone. Although I live in Arizona now, which is obviously a primarily non-black state. It's primarily white and Latino. I too zone also grew up in an all black neighborhood in Greenville, South Carolina, zip code 29605. That's where I grew up, you know what I'm saying? And it was a beautiful thing. And I want to say that because they be trying to make it seem like black people are the most devilish people, the most evil people, the worst people to live around, to be around. And it was a beautiful thing when I was growing up. I used to come home, most of when I was in school, elementary school, middle school, see, most of my friends, we all lived in the same neighborhood. So when school, not only was we hanging out in school at lunch, recess, playground, kickball, you know what I'm saying? We waiting in the after school, our parents picking us up, but then we was going to each other's house after school and playing PlayStation, Nintendo, and all of that kind of stuff. And we was hanging out in the neighborhood. So I grew up in the same neighborhood with my friends, and we all went to the same school, and it was beautiful. In fact, one of the girls that I got my first, like, I guess you could say, romances with, early puppy love back in the day, she lived in my neighborhood, and I grew up the way that you're supposed to grow up. All of your memories supposed to be in one neighborhood, one place. That's a real black neighborhood, a real black community. I got to experience that growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s. And it was a beautiful thing. So I just want to say that because let YouTube tell it, you know what I mean? Black people are no good. You don't want to live around black people. You know, black people commit crimes. They break in your house and all of this nonsense. It was a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? I could shed a tear thinking about it. That's how beautiful it was. But let's go.
Community, it wasn't until I got saved in 2008 that I started to open my mind more. And when I became a police officer.
Yeah, and just because you get saved, Officer Raccoon Tatum, that doesn't mean that you get saved and you just turn into a full-blown coon. You know what I'm saying? Just because you get saved by white Jesus, because you probably believe Jesus was white, even though Jesus was not white. You know what I mean? That don't mean you turn into a coon just because you get saved.
Officer, that's when I became more conservative, looking at the policy positions of the Democrat Party and realizing, oh, wait a minute, I don't agree with any of these policy positions. Standing for what's right when it comes to God, standing for, secure borders, standing for, you name it, what the Republican platform is all about, lean more towards what I believed. Ben Carson was one of the leading voices that I felt I identified with the most. And it really opened my eyes to realizing that I'm more of a Republican, I'm more of a conservative than I am considered a Democrat or a liberal. And then when I looked at the historical context of the Democrat Party, that also inspired me to realize that I don't even know why black people ever support the Democrat Party. When you look at the history of it, the history back in slavery, the non-support or the fickle support of black people, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, you go.
And here's the thing, even though I dislike probably about 95% of what Officer Raccoon Tatum has to say, I will acknowledge when a broken clock is right at least twice a day. And by the way, the first blacks in government were actually Republicans. The first blacks allowed in Congress were actually Republicans, and the majority of black people actually back in the day, 40s, 50s, 60s, actually, and before that, actually were Republicans and actually had more of a conservative view. And if you ask me, black people in general are probably more conservative, but obviously they lean towards the Democrats because the Democrats is going to bring you Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Beyonce, and a lot of black people don't understand. They just fall for the antics and the booty shaking and all of that. So black people actually were, they were rocking with the Republican Party when they first were allowed in Congress.
To the civil rights movement, you name it. I feel like the Democrat Party has not been sufficient for black people.
The Democrat Party and the Republican Party has not been sufficient for black people.
And you said you grew up in a predominantly black area, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the Fort Worth Stop 6 area, correct?
Well, I grew up in multiple areas. I went to school at Dunbar High School, Paul Laurence Dunbar, named after the famous black poet Paul Laurence Dunbar. But I went to Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, which was right in Stop 6. We lived in Eastwood, which was down the street with my grandma for a couple years. And it wasn't that we needed to, we had to. My daddy was in my life. My mama was good. Like we weren't poor or anything. It just so happened that we lived in those areas. One reason I went to Dunbar was because we wanted to excel in sports. And so we ended up transferring from Crowley to Dunbar. So I was living in a lot of different areas, man. We lived in middle class areas. We lived in poor areas. I had a very diverse upbringing.
I don't know if you know this or not, but I went to college not too far away from there, Texas Wesleyan University.
Oh yeah. I looked you up, man. So
that's very close to where you are.
Yeah.
So before this 2008 that you were just referring to, would you have identified as a Democrat before that?
Yeah, I identified as a Democrat, but I wasn't really into politics. It's just growing up black, you're a Democrat. And Republicans are racist white people. That's what was, internalized in me as I was growing up. And so that's how I felt. But man, I didn't vote. I wasn't really involved as much. It wasn't until I got.
And what I will say as far as politics, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to turn this conversation into a political conversation, but teach your kids to vote for policy. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't deal with politics, and rightfully so. I completely understand it. Democrats are bad. Republicans are bad. But this is what I would say. If you presidential election, local election, look at what their policy is. Vote for policy. Don't vote for the person. That's what I would say. Vote for policy. Vote for your personal interests. Do you know why you want to vote for your personal interests? Because the rich and wealthy vote for their personal interests. Vote for policy. Vote for your personal interests. Hit the like button and subscribe button. Let's go.
After college and I became a cop, that I started really thinking I need to vote. I need to be a productive member of society. Black people die for the right to vote, and me sitting on the sideline not getting involved in politics is a disservice. So that's pretty much how I started to vote and get involved.
Was there a particular moment, or was it an evolution where you were just like, the Republican ideals seem to be more in line with me and who I am?
Well, it was an evolution because I grew up, and I would say when I was growing up, I was racist. I didn't really like white people like that. We never was around white people. And I had a very negative connotation. I didn't like police officers. First time I got an interaction with a police officer, I was 8.
And see, here's the thing. I would not necessarily say that he was racist. I would just say that, a lot of us that grow up in black neighborhoods, obviously that have black parents, especially those of us who have grandparents, our parents were born in the 70s, and then you have grandparents that were born maybe in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Those are the ones that went through the civil rights movement. And so when they're telling you, hey, stay away from white people, or don't trust white people, or they're telling you, like to not trust the police, that is not being racist. That is just your parents trying to protect you. That's not being racist. Racism can be taught, but you know what I'm saying? What he's saying is that his parents told him to stay away from white people because they don't want no trouble. His people understand the pitfalls of a black man in America when it comes to police brutality and when it comes to the mistreatment of black men, specifically just on a random traffic stop. You know what I'm saying? So that doesn't necessarily make him racist, man. So I would disagree with what he's saying right there.
Arrested for smoking weed in a vacant house with my cousins. And
as an 8-year-old?
8-year-old, yeah. I stopped smoking weed when I was 8, actually. But
what year? Whoa! When did you start?
Probably around when I was 6, 7, smoking weed with my cousins.
All right.
And
all right. So you stop at 8. Okay.
Because I got arrested. We went to juvenile. We didn't spend a lot of time in there, but we ended up getting arrested. Went to juvenile detention. We stayed there for the majority of the day. My daddy came in there. like he was in the WWE saying he's going to kill us and everything. And that changed my life. It's a whole story around that because, anyway, moving forward. So I grew up with that perspective. And when I left high school, went to college, I had an opportunity to be around white people in real life. And I realized that, wait a minute, I don't think white people are as racist or as punitive towards black people. It appears to me when I was in college, they didn't even care. It was a non-starter of racism when I went to the University of Arizona. It was nothing there. And so I began to realize, whoa, the world is bigger. Things are much different. I've been in an isolated box being taught something that I think is not really reality. And I got saved, and then I quit worrying about race. Race became irrelevant when I got saved. When I gave my life to Christ, I don't only look at people based on the color of their skin. I look at people based on their character. I look at people based on who they are, who they present themselves to be. I believe that we're all God's children and that the color of your skin is irrelevant. And so moving from that.
And see, here's the thing. Like I said, man, I disagree with probably about 95% that 95% of things that Raccoon Tatum says. But here's what I will say. I do agree. I like what he's saying as far as, he's given us his experience of when he got saved. It opened his mind. He moved to Arizona and it gave him a complete difference of perspective about white people. And maybe white people aren't as bad as, he was taught, or I guess you could say taught, basically, that they were. I live in Arizona, and the funny thing is there's a possibility that I probably have ran into Officer Tatum a few times. I just didn't know who he was until YouTube. You know what I'm saying? He was a police officer in Tucson, Arizona, which is actually about 2.5 hours south of me. So he was actually a police officer in Tucson, Arizona. And he went to the University of Arizona. And he used to frequent all of these little Charlie Kirk rallies and these MAGA rallies and, these right-leaning rallies. You know what I'm saying? I've been to a few of them, just to kind of get a taste of the environment and see what's going on. You know what I mean? So I like what he's saying, how his experience of coming into Christ has expanded his mind, and it just, makes him feel differently. But just because you accepted Christ, it doesn't mean that white supremacy doesn't exist. I'm sorry. You can give me all of the come to Jesus moments all you want to. Oh, I moved to Arizona and, I'm around white people now. I'm sorry. You can be around white people all day. Don't mean that some of them in the crowd don't like your ass because of your skin color. It doesn't mean that some of them in the crowd don't like you because they were taught not to like you by their parents and grandparents. It doesn't mean that some of the people that you're hanging out in the crowd don't like you because of stereotypes that they get from social media and TV and radio. So just because you get saved by Christ, it doesn't neglect the fact that white supremacy still exists. And it doesn't change the fact that when you get pulled over by a cop and you're a black man and the cop is white, that you're behind enemy lines. Let's go.
At that point, I get to policing, and then a lot of times the guys that on the police department, they challenge me. They like, hey, do you believe in that? I'm like, no, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in this LGBTQ movement. I don't mind people doing what they want to do with their own time with who they love. But the movement, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with pushing it on people, different things like that. I believe in lower taxes. I believe in, that we were founded on Judeo-Christian values in this nation and that we are a Christian nation that's very tolerable to others.
So first of all, that's a lie. The United States was not founded on Judeo-Christian values. Most of the founders of America were actually atheists. They actually didn't believe in God. From your Benjamin Bannekers, your Thomas Jeffersons, your George Washingtons, your Ben Franklins, most of your founders of America were not Christians. They didn't believe in this, this Jesus guy that you say that you gave your life to. You know what I'm saying? And they like to tell you, and they like to put it in and indoctrinate these children that, people fled Great Britain, for religious persecution. Nah, a lot of these forefathers of America fled Great Britain because they wanted to get the bag, because they weren't able to get the bag under the king and queen of the UK. That's why they came to America, so that they could get the bag, so they didn't have to be subject to the rule of Great Britain and all of their taxes and tariffs and trade policies and all of that BS. It wasn't about religious persecution, because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that the founding fathers of America, most of them were atheists. They didn't believe in God. But I will say this, at least they were smart enough to put God in the Constitution. One nation, under God, with liberty, indivisible we stand, one nation overall, and all of that kind of stuff. I hope I said that right. Let's go.
The religions and perspectives, but we are a Christian nation. All of our founders were believers. Most of our founders were avid believers.
Okay, yeah, all right. He corrected himself. And actually, no, most of our founders were not believers. Again, most of our founders were not believers.
Our early scientists were believers. So
most of our early scientists weren't believers. Most scientists don't believe in a higher power or God. They believe that they're God. They believe that science is God. So again, this is why y'all got to be careful with people just turning on their microphones and saying anything. Even me, I just turned on my microphone. I saw this, turn on my microphone. But here's the thing. I'm not going to purposely like just spew out information to mislead people. Because listen, man, I love money just as the next person, but I don't believe in capitalizing off of people's ignorance. It just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right with my soul, and that's not how I was raised. And if I don't know something, I'm gonna tell you that I don't know something, but I'm gonna tell you what I know if I know something.
I understood the perspective. I studied Africana studies in college, Black history.
Was that your major?
That was my minor. I had a thematic minor, so I was studying Africana studies as my minor, but I happened to need two classes, so I had to throw sign language in another class in and create a thematic minor. So
Gotcha.
my minor ended up being thematic, but majority of my minor was Africana studies. So
and where'd you go to college?
University of Arizona.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I hope I'm not getting off topic. That's kind of where it led, and being challenged on the police department by some of my friends. And I'm like, I don't believe in that. They're like, well, that's what the Democrats believe. And then for the first time in my life, I actually look at what the Republicans believe, because I never even considered them. They were racist white people to me. Then I started looking at the platform. I went to a Trump rally, and not because I supported him, because I wanted to hear what he had to say. I really supported Ben Carson. And then I realized I do agree with these things. I do agree. Right. I love my country and all these other things. And I'm like, I believe I'm more Republican.
Got you. And so before that, you were just Democrat by default. This is what I grew up around.
And I just want to say this too. Politically speaking, I identify more on the conservative side and probably more on the Republican side. But that's not gonna just because I'm more conservative and I rock with the Republicans a little bit more politically and policy wise, that's not going to stop me from saying that racism exists. It's not going to stop me from saying that it's possible that somebody could, be mistreated by somebody else. It's not going to stop me from saying that it's a possibility that the government could be trying to take advantage of the citizens of the United States of America. Just because I myself might be a little bit right-leaning is not going to stop me from calling out what situations really are because of my beliefs politically. To me, that's bullshit. If I see something going on that's not right, I'm not going to call it out just because I'm a conservative or I'm a Republican. And that's the issue that I have with a lot of these so-called Johnny-come-lately Republican / conservative douchebags on the internet is that they like to act like bullshit just doesn't exist. You can still be a conservative and a Republican and call out bullshit. Just like I would consider myself to a degree pro-black. I love black people and I love black women. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is with me. I love all women. I'm attracted to all kinds of different women, but I understand the beautiful dynamic between the black man and the black woman. And I've been blessed to grow up in a household where I got to see a black man and a black woman be married from 1956 to 2025. And the majority of my family members are black women married to black men. And I got to experience that beautiful dynamic. So I don't take the relationship between black men and black women for granted. Unlike a lot of these grown ass adults on YouTube who just like want to act like, you know, just like black relationships and marriage and all of that is just so dysfunctional and it's toxic. It's crazy to me. I can't rock with it and I don't understand it because that's not the environment that I was groomed and raised in. I got to see beautiful, you know what I mean, black relationship and marriage. All from well, not from the beginning, but I got to witness the last half of that, the last 30 years of that. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's go.
Yeah.
I didn't really explore anything else. I was just birthed into this. Here I am as a Democrat.
Yep.
Okay. So recently I've become aware of your work. And I wasn't really aware of you up until recently and have been following you and paying attention to some of the things you've been saying, posting, et cetera, et cetera. And there are a few questions that I'd like to ask you about some of the messages you have. Now, I want to be very, very clear. I do not agree with a lot of the things that you say. But in my opinion, that's perfectly fine. People can disagree. You're allowed to have whatever opinion you'd like to have. I'm allowed to have whatever opinion I'd like to have. But I'm a psychotherapist, and I've been a psychotherapist for 20 years. So I hear things through a very particular lens as a result of being a psychotherapist and the experiences I've had through those 20 years. And that has led me to want to ask you a few questions about some of this content. Are you okay with that?
100%.
Okay. Because one of the things I'd like to start with, are you familiar with the term naive reality?
I can deduce what it means, but I'm not familiar with that specific term scientifically.
Well, so I want to use the term clinically. Like some of the terms that we use, I want to use the term clinically, and it's the psychological phenomenon when people believe their own perception of reality is the only objective one. So when I watch you, in particularly on like the Jubilee interview, for example, and someone gives you data, you often respond with your own subjective reality. And it made me want to ask you, what do you think of the idea of of the idea of the concept naive reality? Now, naive reality, I don't mean to call you naive. Like, that's why I want to be clear. I'm using the clinical label. Like, that's the word that we use.
Yeah, I get it. I don't agree that I live in that reality. I think I'm pretty.
Yeah, well, I definitely disagree. I think you do live in a reality where all of your responses are subjective. Officer Tatum is not an objective dude. Subjective is basically when you're answering everything from your perspective and you're negating the facts. You're refusing to acknowledge that there are actually facts about something that exist. And you're just going to skip over that. And basically what you say, your response to a question is law and it's final. So that's what subjective, objective means, to be add a little bit of your subjective perspective, but to also at the same time acknowledge that there is factual information about whatever subject that you're speaking on. And Officer Tatum is definitely subjective. He is not objective. Out of all of these live streams, I've been seeing people review of Officer Tatum, and even just little clips of here and there that I've seen of Officer Tatum. He is not an objective dude at all. He is completely 100% subjective. Shout out to Truth Seeker in the building saying Grand Rising. Grand Rising to you. Make sure y'all hit that like button and the subscribe button. Let's go.
Practical. When someone's giving me statistical data points that's unverified, I can't just run with it just because they said it. And if you look at some of the Jubilee footage, people were claiming all kind of things and they got fact checked and they were wrong. Some of the things that they said about Booker T. Washington, the guy who said he was an educator and it lied about, flat out lied or had not as he mixed up statements from Booker T. Washington book Up From Slavery. And then he goes and says it. And I can't go and verify it on the spot. And when others bring up statistical data points from studies that I haven't been able to verify, it's impossible for me to go and make an argument about something that's unverifiable. And I think that you would know in any argument that you would make or any discussion that you would have, if I come up and give something that you can't validate or verify, you either concede to it or you say, look, I object to the premise. I have education that leads me to believe certain things that's counter to things that was presented during the show. And I expressed that. I don't think that.
But here's the thing. This is what I want to say as well. Your education has nothing to do with factual information. You could be one of the most educated people on the planet and still live in delusion and denial about certain things. And that's the problem that I have. That's actually the problem that I have with a lot of academics and people in academia is that they're too busy. They're too busy trying to create their own, hypotheses and, their own theories. It gets to a point where they get in a rabbit hole and they just refuse to acknowledge the facts about the situation, like the Nolan Wells situation. The fact of the matter, and Officer Raccoon Tatum has definitely been outspoken about how he feels about the Nolan Wells situation, basically trying to say that that Wyatt, Warren, Bart, basically trying to say that those young men have nothing to do with the fact that Nolan is deceased. And like I said, the problem that I have with that is the fact that there's an investigation that's still going on, but yet this man is speaking on this case with such certainty, and he's believing suspects. He's believing suspects. That to me, and this man claims that he's an ex-police officer. To me, that's bad police work. You believe suspects in a murder case, even though they're going to call it an investigation. I'm going to go a step further and call it a murder case. That's what I'm going to say. And you're an ex-cop interviewing primary suspects in an investigation, which actually is a murder investigation. That's just how I feel, because I believe that there's foul play. Even if it's just a little bit of foul play, I believe that there's foul play. Let's go.
My reality is the only reality. I know a lot of people. I got a lot of friends that don't agree with me. People forget I'm still black. My whole family is black. And we don't always agree. We have spirited discussions on certain things. I don't think my dad agreed with some of the things that I say. I think he agreed with most of it, but we have spirited discussions on this. I don't live in an echo chamber where I'm the only one that has have a reality that everybody has to bow down to. And so I just disagree. And I think it's fine for us to disagree. The problem that I do have is when people say that somehow I'm not black because we have a difference of agreement, or somehow I can't handle the truth, or I hate my own skin and I'm gonna sell out Uncle Tom bootlicker because.
But here's the thing: you are a sellout Uncle Tom bootlicker, and it's just weird, bro. You're just a weirdo. Point blank. Period. You're just weird. Like it's one thing for people, not just black people. It's one thing for people to have a difference of opinion, but for a young man to go missing, more specifically for a young black man to go missing, and you're the head Negro in charge. You're the head Negro in front of the media trying to say, "Oh, there was no foul play. Nothing happened. Leave these young white boys alone. Y'all are trying to make this about racism." You're the one doing their bidding. That's why everybody looking at you and talking about you like you weird, like you crazy. Because if nothing happened, I'm pretty sure it would, hopefully, God willing, it would come out in an investigation. And again, this is Jackson, Mississippi we're talking about. But God willing, if nothing happened, it would come out in an investigation. But you're sitting there like trying to push this narrative. You're trying to show so hard that it's not about race and this, that, and the third. It's just a weird thing you're doing. Because any black person in their right mind wouldn't be trying to do all of this BS that you're trying to do, trying to interview these dudes and give them a scapegoat and trying to make it seem like they didn't do shit and trying to make it seem like it's just weird, point blank, period. I've even heard non-black people say that they think that Officer Tatum is weird. The fact that he's a black man trying to sit here and trying to make it look like nothing happened when a young black man went out with a group of young white boys and he was the only one that didn't come back. I've even heard non-black people say that Officer Tatum is weird for trying to make it look like there was nothing that happened. So it's not just black people that's calling this BS out. I've heard non-black people say that. In Arizona, sir, where you went to school, sir. I've heard non-black people say that in Arizona, sir. It ain't just me, and it's not just black people.
Because I have a difference of opinion. In reality, a lot of black people have a difference of opinion. We're not all monolith. We're all monolithic in our thought process. You know, I think Thomas Sowell has a very different perspective than other economists who are black. You know, we go down the list. You know, our current, and I would say one of the most honorable Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas. I bet him and Thurgood Marshall have a difference of opinion. I don't think either one of them are invalidated because of their opinions. And so that's the point that I have contention with. A lot of things that I said on there was based on evidence, based on research, and based on my own lived experience.
So you said earlier that when someone presents you with data that you can't verify, it's hard to argue with, correct? Did I catch that right?
It's not fair to make a debate argument on unverified data because you're arguing from a false premise. So I can't.
And see, here's the thing. That's also something that I have a problem with when it comes to Brandon Tatum. He's literally speaking with a psychotherapist who's been in his field over 20 years. Even at the beginning of the interview, Brandon Tatum acknowledged that he looked up the person that he's talking to, which is Elliot Connie, a psychotherapist who's been in his field over 20 years. And so that's the problem that I have, is that you're talking to experts, yet you're refusing to acknowledge the information that they're telling you. I would think that if you're speaking to an expert with 20 years in the field, I would think, especially if they're doing this every day, or if they made a career off of this, I would think the information that they would give you is valid information. And that's the problem. That's one of these newer things that these conservative dudes, these conservative people do, is that they just refuse to acknowledge reality. They refuse to acknowledge facts. and they constantly push back on common sense. And I'm a person that believes that you should question everything. Question everything. But then when you get to a conclusion of something solid and factual, well, then you just have to leave it at that. But the problem with a lot of this new Republican conservatism is that they just keep going and going and going. Nothing's absolute with them. They just keep going and going and going, like the Energizer Bunny. They just keep going and going and going.
Concede to something and I haven't verified, because people do lie and people do tell half truths, and I haven't had a chance to evaluate the study, right? If you gave me a study and I haven't been able to look at it or verify it, how then will I give you a fair enough argument in return? So I don't want to argue something that I haven't been able to verify. And most of those individuals were just making up stuff.
So how would you be able to determine if someone is somebody that you could listen to versus not? Like, for example, I'm a very credible psychotherapist. I've been trained. I've been doing this a long time. So if I said something, and I'll just give you an irrelevant point that will be accurate, but a relevant point.
And see, this is where it starts to get good, right? Because Officer Tatum is somebody that is used to, having the one up on the situation. Because typically Brandon Tatum is the one who's doing the interviewing. So he controls the questions. He controls the narrative. He controls the final outcome of the interview or the content that he does. But this is where it kind of starts getting good.
If I said to you, the counseling field was created in Boston, Massachusetts by a group of individuals that wanted to help people find job placements. That's a fact. I'm going to guess you didn't know that because you're not a trained psychotherapist. Like, at what point do you say, I can listen to that data point, even though that's the first person I've heard say that data point? I don't have to go fact check it. I can listen to that data point.
Yeah. So just when it comes to you, I think you may be credible, but I think you are biased. And the reason I say that is because of some of the critiques you've had.
And see, pay attention to that. That's real important what he just said. Brandon Tatum said to the psychotherapist, to Elliot, he thinks he's credible, but he thinks he's biased, right? So with a name like Officer Brandon Tatum, with officer in front of his name, the fact that he has officer in his name, wouldn't that make him biased towards police officers? Pay attention and let's see what happens. How are you going to call a psychotherapist biased when he's a psychotherapist? Of course, he's going to have a perspective that's biased towards his field, because this is what he does. Just like anybody that's in their profession is going to be biased to their profession. So it's just crazy how this dude, he's just trying to like conflate the issue, and I don't know, man. He's just a weirdo, man. Hit the like button.
To me in previous videos, without even meeting me or knowing me or interviewing me, you made some suggestions about who I was, and I thought it was unfair.
And see, here's the thing. Yes, of course he made some suggestions about how you were. How else is he? What else with all of the content that's out here? What else is he gonna go off of? So yes, that's the whole purpose of doing this interview, to find out more about you, to talk to you one-on-one like a man is supposed to. Yes. So yes, he's going to form opinions and thoughts of you based on your videos, because that's all he knows until he talks to you. Just like we have opinions and thoughts about our favorite R&B singers, our favorite rappers, our favorite entertainers, our favorite people, because all we know of them is what we see online and the internet and TV and the radio, until we actually meet them in real life. And by the way, they say that you should never meet your heroes in real life, because they're going to end up not being your hero after you meet them.
Fair. However, if you make a statement of fact, I don't have a reason to believe that it's different because I don't have any basis to argue it. Like, for instance, you gave me that statistical data point, or not data point, but you gave me that factual reality. I have not read or heard or have any reason to doubt what you said. Now, if you said that counseling and therapy was generated to make sure black people will never make it in life, then we're going to have an argument about it or a conversation about it, because that does not seem to be practical in reality, and I've never heard it, and I've never heard anybody argue that. So I may push back on it. That doesn't mean that you can't prove me wrong. It's just that some things I may push back if it sounds nonsensical or not rooted in reality.
All right, so we are actually going to speed this up just a little bit.
But see, that's where I think the term naive reality fits here, because I might say something like, and I'll go with your example. I might say the field of therapy and counseling was created to hold black people back. And you might say, that seems nonsensical to me, without acknowledging my expertise for being in that space. Like, I am in a position to say that as a fact, even if it seems contrarian to what you would have thought.
Well, Elliot, think about this. I'm a former police officer. I did the job for many years. I'm very proficient at what I did. Many commendations. You know, you can go down, so on and so forth. You can ask anybody ever worked with me. I was a very good police officer. Just because I'm a police officer don't mean that everything I say pertaining to law enforcement is correct. It doesn't mean that that you have to accept it as being correct. Maybe I'm wrong about some things. I'm open to that. But just because I have credentials in the field, it doesn't mean that you have to concede to everything that I say. And so I think that if I say something to you that you think is invalid, or you don't think is rooted in factual reality, or that you have contrary facts, it's okay to challenge me on it. And I don't think that you should just go off everything I say at face value. And I'm not going to go off everything you say at face value if it contradicts what my lived experiences are and my research have shown. And then we have a debate on that. You know, like when it comes to policing in America. I mean, there's Harvard research that have been done that determined very clearly by a black man who is now alienated. I forget his name. We can look it up. But, you know, he made a very distinct finding that there is no bias in policing against black people disproportionately. And that person was shunned. He was Harvard educated, one of the most intelligent young men that's not even a conservative. And when he makes statements like that, coupled with my lived experience as a police officer, I begin to realize, well, maybe, just maybe, people are projecting.
See, here's where I have a disagreement, right? Because here's the thing, right? I'm from South Carolina originally, born and raised, right? I know I don't really have a strong Southern accent like that. That's because I was raised around my family, you know what I'm saying, from New York and all of that. So I speak like my family because that's who I was raised around, right? But, you know what I mean? I'm a country boy. You know what I'm saying? I was raised in Greenville, South Carolina, in the South, the majority of my early life, right? And here's the thing. Police used to be called the slave patrol. So the fact that the police derived, the slave patrol turned into the police, it derives into what we know as the police today. It's always going to be biased towards, you know, black people and minorities, because the origination prior to what we know as the police today, they used to be the slave patrol. The police primary job used to be to go catch slaves that run away from plantations. It just evolved over the years. Let me see. Chanel says she's from the Southeast too. Savannah, Georgia, by the way. Shout out to you. Shout out to Savannah. Good country, Savannah, man. Savannah's a beautiful place, man. You know what I'm saying? Chanel also says in the chat, yes, they still wear the symbol being slave. Yeah, that symbol, the star symbol today, that's the same symbol that the police, the slave catchers used to have in the slavery days in America. The star on the badge, that is the slave symbol from back when America had slavery. It's still the same, except they call the police today and they're not called slave catchers. They're not called slave patrol. So yes, the police are not only are they biased, the police is the biggest gang in America, point blank, period.
projecting a reality on law enforcement that's not necessarily true because of their own biases. So you have statistical data and research that contradicts some of the research that the gentleman presented to me on Jubilee. I think his name was Ronald Fryer. I think it's Ronald Fryer. I think his name is. But anyway, people can look that up if they want.
But see, that's the interesting thing, which is why I'm so interested in talking to you about these points, because
sorry, y'all. We got a quick commercial break. Make sure y'all hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. Let's go.
when you say those kinds of things, like there's a Harvard researcher that says X, Y, or Z. I'm going to be very honest with you. I did a year, because you're familiar with this area. I did a year working with and training and riding out with the Arlington Police Department as a clinician, teaching them how to talk to. You're probably familiar with the Victims Assistance Unit, so teaching them how to talk to victims of violence crime. I did all of those experiences. I'm very aware with certain research, and I'm very aware with police biases. If I present information to you, there's something about you that holds on to your already held idea.
Not really. I mean, let's do it. We'll do a point now. I mean, what did you observe when you were on the ride along? Did you observe racial biases? That
not only did I observe it, but the police. One of the things that I really enjoyed about the Arlington Police Department was the Arlington Police Department is one of the only police departments in the state of Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I believe there were three at the time. I don't know what there is now, but it's one of the only police departments in this area that required a bachelor's degree. So we would have very, very intellectual conversations. And not only did I observe it, I observed police officers calling each other out on it. And I observed police officers acknowledging it and addressing it.
And acknowledging racial bias in policing?
100%, yes.
And can you give me an example of when you were on a ride along that this occurred? And what was the scenario?
I can absolutely give you an example. Are you familiar with
and also, I would love for you to do this, and we can do it offline. If you can give me the police officer that you rode along with, because I would love to communicate.
And see, this is another thing another problem that I have. You know what I mean? They ask for examples, like when you're talking about an issue and you actually come prepared to really discuss and talk about the issue, and you actually have studies, examples, real life situation, and you give them that situation. Now they want to try to void this situation by, asking you, hey, can I have this person's name? When you actually had the information. And that's another thing that I don't like about this new wave of, conservatism is, again, you could have the cure for cancer and they're still going to question everything. Instead of just acknowledging the information and then going in and do their own research, right? Well, let's hear what the therapist has to say.
Okay, with that person, because I have never had a conversation with a cop that have made mention of some of that he witnessed or was involved in racial bias on the police department while having a ride along. But
no. Okay, before I do that, I want to say clinically, you're doing the thing that we would judge clinically that I'm talking about right now. This thing that we're talking about, this night. Hold on,
I just said present it to me. I'm not saying that you're wrong.
No, I got you. I'm going to explain exactly what I mean in a minute. That's why I'm happy to do this.
But Elliot, is it unfair for me to say, I have never heard of this? Can you please give me the example that you presented? I never said you were wrong. I just said I wanted to hear the example.
I'm going to explain the concept, and then I'm going to 100% respond to your question.
Okay.
Because the concept, right, this idea that we're talking about here, this reality thing, this naive reality, it's usually held by people that are in authoritarian positions, that their identity is attached to their position, and they're getting social rewards for holding that position. When that happens, hold on, I'm going to make this point, and then I'm going to respond to you. When that happens, your brain, not you, Brandon, but the human brain, experiences a threat. They experience the conflict of my previously held idea, not as a new idea. They experience that new idea as an existential threat. Because if I accept that thing to be true, then a lot of my other arguments fall apart.
But Elliot, can I interject? I think you're alluding that this is me. I don't have an attachment. I'm not a police officer anymore.
No,
I'm an
you're
entrepreneur.
Not.
So
you're not a police officer anymore, but you're still biased for the police. Once you're a police, you never stop being a police. Even if you don't work in that occupation, that doesn't mean that you don't still have the instinct of a police officer. Nobody just goes through the police academy and all of that training and then you quit and then you quit being a police officer, you quit the occupation, but you lose the instinct of a police officer, the suspicious instinct, and all of the training and teach you. No, that's just like a soldier that goes off into the army, into the military. Just because you are, like honorably discharged from the military, or you retire from the military, that doesn't mean that just because you stop being a soldier as a profession, that doesn't mean that you lose your instincts as a soldier. You see what I'm saying? Because I actually worked with the department. I was actually employed by the Department of Defense for 5 years, like 4 or 5 years. And I only worked around lieutenants. You know what I mean? I've spoken with generals. I only worked around soldiers, active duty soldiers. I only worked around military. I was I wasn't in the military, but I was contracted through the Department of Defense, working alongside the military day in and day out. So, and it was a very stressful job. And one thing I can tell you is that once you're a soldier, you're always a soldier. You never lose the instinct of being a soldier, just like you never lose the instinct of being a police officer.
I don't have an attachment. If a cop is wrong, they wrong. It doesn't hurt me if a cop is wrong and go to jail for racial biases. Me and you can go to the police department together and let's fight against racist cops doing things they ain't supposed to do. I'm with you on that, brother. We can do it together. So
I would gladly march into any police department you wanted to and hold them accountable. I'm not saying
this cop that you had the experience with needs to be held accountable.
I'm going to get to that in a second. But what you're not doing, which in my opinion clinically fits with this idea of naive reality, is you are saying things like, I've been a cop for 6 years, or however many years you said, I've been a cop for several years, whatever it was. I have never seen or heard about racial bias showing up in policing when there is a significant documented
what you're saying, I'm telling you what my experience is, and you said you have an example of this. I just want you to present the example to me. I'm not saying that it don't exist. I told you what my experiences are, and you have an experience different than mine, and I'm asking you to present the experience to me so I can learn.
So I'm going to present the experience, and then I want to see what happens to your ability to digest this reality.
Okay.
Are you familiar? So I remember one of the officers' name, actually, even though this was like 20, this was the very beginning of my career. This was about 20 years ago, but I remember one of the officers' names because he ended up getting very famous doing something else. So are you familiar with the name? No. Are you familiar with the name Ronnie Coleman?
Yeah, Ronnie Coleman, bodybuilder. The greatest bodybuilder.
The greatest bodybuilder of all time. I'm familiar with him as a bodybuilder, but I met him as a police officer. Did you know he was a police officer at the Arlington Police Department?
Yes.
I was doing a ride-along with a veteran police officer, and we had to go. So my job was to go with the police on scene.
Hey, make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed.
When there was a violent potential crime, when there's a violent crime scene anywhere, and most people don't know this, so I'll go ahead and say this, about 90 to 95% of police calls are domestic violence. So it was just constant violent domestic violence. This one particular call was somebody took their life. And we had to go talk to the people that were in the setting where it happened. I was with a veteran police officer, white guy, when we went out and did it. When we got onto the scene, there was a newer rookie white guy, police officer, that was talking very, very aggressively and disrespectfully to kids in the area who happened to be all black.
Well, wait a minute. Do you think that he was talking to them because they were black, or they just happened to be black?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
When we showed up, the veteran white police officer and myself showed up. He reprimanded this officer and talked to him about, you were only talking to those kids in that way due to your own biases. And they had a lengthy conversation about it. The very next day, when they had the roll call at the police department, they involved Ronnie Coleman. Those of you who might be listening who don't know Ronnie Coleman is black. They involved Ronnie Coleman, and they all had a conversation with this officer, who then acknowledged that his previous experiences have caused a bias that led to him conversating with those kids in that way.
End of discussion. I mean, there's really no need for us to continue watching. There's really no need for us to continue watching this video. Of course, we're going to keep watching. But there you have it. Listen, the fact that there's one police officer that acknowledged that his previous bias for black people caused him to behave a certain type of way towards young black children. If there's only one, if only one officer acknowledges that, how many other hundreds of thousands of officers do you think have biases towards black people? Because all it takes is one officer. All it takes is one. And here's the thing. If just taking it off the police officer, just being 100% real, right? Just as a human, we all have our biases. We all have, I guess you could say, even our prejudices, right? We all have our things that we like and we dislike. We all have our good habits and our bad habits. We all have our good thoughts, our bad thoughts, right? We are human beings, right? But it also, at the same time, is up to us to maintain, a certain standard of behavior, cordial behavior in a world full of other humans, right? Just because you're black and you're having a confrontation with a white person, it doesn't mean that you should punch that white person in the face just because you're having a confrontation with the white person. Just because you're a white person having a confrontation with the black person, that doesn't mean you should punch the black person in the face just because he or she is black. And that's the type of level of civility that I'm talking about. Right? There's a certain unspoken level of decorum that us as responsible human beings must maintain in society. Right? And just like when I was working with the Department of Defense in healthcare, right? I'm dealing with the healthcare of the soldiers. I'm dealing with soldiers that have lost arms, legs, that have been shot. You know what I'm saying? Soldiers that need to, go through treatments for cancer or whatever it is. Soldiers that have mental issues, right? And so when a soldier is giving me a call, because like I said, I was employed by the Department of Defense for 4 or 5 years, right? So when a soldier is on the line calling me, right, my first instinct is not to go off on them. My first instinct is to calm them down and figure out what the hell is going on. What's going on? How can I help you? How can we get this resolved? And it's the same issue for police. Your police are supposed to protect and serve. They are paid by tax dollars. And the issues that police have is that you're not here to threaten the public. You're not here to threaten civilians. You're here to resolve an issue and to enforce the law. That doesn't mean you have to scream at black kids or treat people disrespectful or handle people in a physically aggressive way. There are police officers who have been on the force for 20, 25, 30 years and have never had to discharge their firearm to bring down an assailant or to stop a situation from escalating. And then you have police officers who is shooting motherfuckers every other week. And they come up with excuses to make it seem like these people are bad people, when really your job is to de-escalate the situation without your firearm, without discharging your firearm if you can. But that's the problem that I have with a lot of police officers, is that they don't have that level of comprehension and they just so quick to squeeze the trigger. They don't really want to do their job. This is why some police departments now require you to have a bachelor's degree, because they want their officers to have a higher level of intelligence now. They don't just want somebody that's trigger happy, somebody that's going to be pulling all kind of lawsuits into the police department, causing the insurances to have to pay out to civilians and all of that kind of stuff. This is why this is why police departments are adding the requirement that police officers have a degree now, and not anybody could just be a police officer.
So that is a clear, concrete example where it happened. The very thing you're saying doesn't happen.
No,
happened.
I didn't say it does not happen. I said I have never had the experience with somebody telling me that or experiencing it myself. It can happen. Now, here's the thing. This would probably shock your mind. I don't think that policing is without fault. I know that there's people who are on the police department that are racist. I've never experienced it. I know there's people who are insensitive to race. I know that there's people who are dirtbags. I work with some of them that were dirtbags and they got fired, and nobody hates them more than other police officers. So I'm not here telling you that there's no such thing as racism. I'm just saying it's so infrequent that I have never experienced it. But you have your experiences. He was reprimanded by another white officer, and his behavior changed. So what that tells me—
I didn't say his behavior changed. I did not say his behavior changed.
Well, if his behavior didn't change, then he shouldn't be a police officer anymore, correct?
He might not be. I was only there for a year.
Well, we need to find out, because if somehow he was— see, here's the thing that I think is pertinent to digest as well, is a person can have an opinion about the way you treat another person and project that it's race related, and when it's not. He said that he felt his previous behaviors were wrong in the way he treated the young people, correct? When Ronnie Coleman showed up to the meeting. So that means that he acknowledged he was wrong. The other officer called him out when he saw it happen. That means that if his behavior continues that way, he should not be a police officer anymore.
I agree with you.
And what I'm saying is that you're showing me and you explained to me a check and balance that happened in real time, meaning that
correct,
unchecked behavior is not something that's prevalent. If most officers do not partake in racial biases towards people, it makes officers sick to their stomach, and they hate it with a passion. So therefore, when you see an officer see another officer do something incorrect to people in the community, they will get on there fast, and it happens. What I'm telling you is that you can say that there's things that occur. I agree with you, but that you just showed me an example of how most officers are unaccepting to stuff like that. Racial bias in policing is unacceptable to most officers.
Okay. I want to be very, very clear about this.
Y'all, let me explain something to you. So I was out and about a few weeks ago, and in the city in Phoenix, I guess you could say in the city, right? Because, in cities, big cities like Phoenix, you have, different parts of you have smaller cities within the big city, right? So I was out probably about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? 2 or 3 weeks ago now, minding my business, handling my business. Actually, I was out at about probably about 11:30 at night. And in the city that I live in, like after 10 o'clock, like if you're doing anything suspicious, you know what I'm saying? Or if you're driving over 50 miles an hour, you're basically going to get stopped by the police, right? Like if you, like after 10 o'clock, like there's basically nobody on the streets, most of everybody is indoors. There's not really anybody outside like that. It's almost to a lot of restaurants are closed. They close around 10. So low key is almost like a ghost town after 10 o'clock where I live at in Phoenix, right? So I was out and about, and so I'm driving down the street, right? And again, I know how the police are where I live. You know what I'm saying? And I'm actually familiar with a lot of, I don't know them by a first name basis, but I see the same police officers all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like every time if I go on a quick trip about, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, I see the same police officers all the time because they be sitting in the parking lot chopping it up, right? Because like I said, don't shit be going on. They be waiting. The police where I live at, they be waiting on stuff to happen so they have something to do, right? So I'm driving because I pay attention, right? Because one thing, I'm not gonna give a cop a reason to pull me over, right? Registration up to date, insurance up to date, headlights working, tail lights working, right? I don't got no crazy. I got tint on my car, but it's not crazy dark tint to where it's breaking the law, right? So And also where I live at, the police they don't drive sedans, and some police drive SUVs, but a lot of the cops they actually drive Ford pickup trucks. Like where I live at, they drive, like where a lot of y'all live at, the police they drive SUVs and they drive sedans. But over here where I live at in Arizona, they drive pickup trucks. They drive Ford F-150s, right? So I'm driving about 47. The speed limit is 45 miles an hour on most of the streets where I live in the community that I live in, right? I'm driving about 47, 48 miles per hour. How do I know this? Because I always pay attention to the speed that I'm driving. And I see some lights get behind me, right? And I'm looking in my rearview mirror, and in my mind, right, I'm like, this is probably a police behind me, right? So I go from about 47 to about 46 miles an hour, right? Just to see that, okay, are they going to stay behind me or are they going to get in the other lane? Do you know this motherfucker turned his lights on me and had me pull over while I was driving 47, 48 miles per hour? And then when he gets out the car and he walks over to my window, he said, I had the window down by the time he got there. You know what he asked? He said, do you know why I pulled you over? I said, no. Why did you pull me over? I didn't say that. He said, do you know why I pulled you over? I said, of course, I play dumb. This is what I do. I play dumb. I play dumb at work. I play dumb. This is what I do. I just do that. I play dumb. I play dumb. This is how I get the drop on people, right? This is how I get people to underestimate me, is I play dumb. I act like I don't know what I'm doing. I act like I don't know what I'm talking about. And then when it's time for me to speak, I speak, right? I said, when the officer asked me, does he know why he pulled me over, whatever? I said, I don't know why. I said, I have no idea. You know what this cop told me? This cop told me he pulled me over because one of my license plate lights was out. Headlights working, tail lights working. The light in the back of the window is working. This cop told me that he pulled me over. Now, keep in mind, one of my license plate lights is still working and it's bright. This cop told me that he pulled me over because he could not see my license plate. Mind you, right? Mind you, the cop is like this close to me. This is me right here. This is the cop. The cop told me that he couldn't see my license plate because one of my license plate lights was out. Of course, he ran my insurance, checked the registration, all of that stuff. And of course, he let me go and I was on my way because I knew he didn't have me for speeding, because I always watch my speed when I'm driving, because I know the cops where I live at. I know that they just waiting around for something to do. Like these cops be just hiding in crazy bushes and stuff, waiting on people. Like, I done been around here. I done been around in my neighborhood for too long. I know where the cops are. I know where they're going to be hiding and all that kind of stuff. This cop told me that he pulled me over because one of my license plate lights was out. And he was a white man. Do you guys know that this cop, after he verified everything and everything was good, do you guys know that this cop had the nerve to give me a pound? He had the nerve to try to give me. He had the nerve to try to give me a pound, right? Like everything was good, right? Trying to basically show that it's no hard feelings, right? But again, that just let me know that, listen, it doesn't matter how good of a neighborhood you live in, doesn't matter how good your circumstances are, doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter how clean your car is, it doesn't matter if you're driving under the speed limit. You're subject as a black man and as black people, you're subject to scrutiny from law enforcement at any point in time in America. I ain't got no rap sheet, ain't got no record, ain't got no warrants. There literally should have been nothing. All these people that drive around here with one headlight on and one headlight missing and one tail light on and one tail light missing. People that be driving around here with none of their lights on. People that be driving around here with super dark tint. People that be driving around with no insurance, expired registration, and he pulled me over. So again, that was just, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, that was just a reminder to me, like, hey, doesn't matter how well you're doing in life, you're subject, you're always subject to the scrutiny of the law whenever they feel like they want to use the law on you. Whenever they feel like they want to get in your business, doesn't matter how well you're doing, they're going to get in your business if they want to get in your business.
Point. After I presented you a concrete example, you softened your position, which is fine.
I didn't soften my position. I never had a position that somehow you were wrong. Said,
okay, fine. Okay. We can go back and watch the replay. But my follow-up question to this is, I am one person with my own subjective experience. You asked me to give you a concrete example. I gave you one. You have your own subjective experience where you're saying, I was a police officer for this amount of time. I never saw it. And then you're making a very bold claim saying, I think most officers are disgusted by this, and most officers are good officers. Like, what would someone have to present to you to say, wow, racial bias in policing is actually a bigger issue than I previously thought? Because there is data to that end.
I'm telling you, I'm not saying that racial bias is not in policing. We've already established
I said a major problem.
When you say major, to me, that means that a person that have served in the police department, you've done a few ride-alongs, I've done thousands because I was a cop in the car. I dealt with people on a daily basis. I'm talking about hundreds of arrests, thousands of traffic stops, and you name it. I've had so much experience, and I know a lot of officers. And I'm telling you that with my experience personally.
Okay, first of all, let's keep it real. This is Tucson, Arizona, right? Now, Tucson, Arizona, again, I live in Phoenix. Tucson, Arizona is about 2.5 hours south of me, right? I would just get on the I-10. I would get on the I-10 East, and I would just stay on the I-10 East for about 2 hours, and I'll be in Tucson, right? First of all, Ninja. First of all, I'm pretty sure that you probably had a lot of arrests. I don't know if you had hundreds of arrests, right? And when you say, what do you say, thousands of tickets? Nah, homie. Nah, you exaggerating them numbers a little bit too much, man. Now, if you was in Phoenix, it would be a little bit more believable because it's a lot of messed up places in Phoenix. Like Phoenix, I know Phoenix, like people, when people think of, when people think of, when you hear Phoenix, you don't think dangerous, right? But Phoenix has a lot of dangerous places, man. Phoenix has a lot of bad places. Now, if you was in Phoenix, I could understand, but in Tucson, I can't see you having hundreds of arrests and thousands of tickets, man. You probably got like a few dozen arrests and maybe a few hundred tickets, but I don't know about thousands, man. You might be stretching it a little bit.
Plus officers that I've talked to, it does not appear that racial bias is prevalent. You, as a clinician, just gave an example, and the example you chose was that you encountered a rookie officer who doesn't have a lot of experience getting chastised by another officer who were both white because he was inappropriate in the way he treated young black men or young black kids on a call.
Kids.
So I'm telling you my experience, and even in your experience, it validates what I'm saying. It's so not prevalent that you can't even witness it happen without somebody checking them over it. And therefore,
that's not what I said. You asked me for one example. I gave you an example.
But the example you gave me, to me, I'm assuming that you would give me a pretty prominent, egregious example. But even an example that you gave me, you're alluding to the fact that he was chastised by another senior officer who was white, not a black man.
He was called out for sure. He was called out by a white man.
And that's why I'm saying most cops are not in the business of being racist. And when we see our officers doing things they shouldn't do, majority of the cops will call people out on this. It's not acceptable in policing for you to be racist towards people. It's not acceptable. Now, there are people that do it, but that's not acceptable. It's not like your chief is going to watch you do something racist and go, yeah, that's totally fine. No, the community is not accepting it. Other black officers won't accept it, and good white officers will not accept it in policing. So it's rare.
But here's my statement. It's according to data, according to research, it's not rare. I can give
research that I just explained to you from Fryer, from Harvard, a Harvard professor who did a research document and posted that his findings, and they didn't even want him to present his findings, and they hated him over it, that his findings were that there is no biases when you look at the numbers against blacks in policing.
I'm going to post, when we post this video, I'm going to post more research. And my question to you is, will you observe and attend to research that is not a part of your or my subjective experience?
100%. I wrote a book on this stuff. Let me give you a couple examples. Do you think that?
No. Wait.
Okay.
I want to hear your example. I want to hear your response clearly. Will you accept data that is beyond just subjective experience and is developed by people that research this?
I just told you that the Harvard professor had his data. I accept all data.
Okay,
but I'm articulating to you that there's counter data to saying that there's implicit bias in policing to a large degree, racism against blacks. I just showed you there's counter data. I accept everybody's data.
But why are you giving more weight? Why are you giving this? Because speaks to the very bias I'm talking about. You're giving more weight to this study versus the contrarian idea.
No. There's a study, right, that I observed. There's two studies. There's the pro and against. And then I have to go off my own experience. So based on...
That's not how learning happens.
No. If you got a study, right, you have a study. Just give both of them credit to say they both are correct subjectively. They both have a subjective perspective here. Both of them are correct. Now, how am I going to choose who's right and who's wrong in this? It has...
See, this is ridiculous, man. Say you have two studies and both of them are subjective. How are you going to prove which one is correct? You prove which one is correct by the study that has the most accurate results to the solution or to the answer that you're looking for. That's how you choose the study that's right, the study that's most accurate. That's how you choose the study that's right. Like this is what I'm saying. Like, this dude is just making stuff much more difficult than it is because he's weird. A lot of these conservatives do that. They refuse to acknowledge the facts, and they're just going to be in their own reality, and they're just going to float through life on their own opinions and just not acknowledge shit, man.
Has to go down to what are my experiences, and does my experiences as a law enforcement officer and all of the officers that I know match one of these experiences?
That's not accurate.
Not unless you're saying one is right and one is wrong.
That is not accurate.
Are you saying that the Harvard study is wrong?
That is not what I'm saying.
Okay, then we're assuming, I'm conceding that both of them are subjectively correct. And whatever research
you got to let me explain how research is consumed. Research is absolutely not one is right and one is wrong. That's not how research is consumed.
Exactly. Subjective, because they have subjective truths.
No, let me explain, because I'm trying to explain to you how research is consumed, because it's not a matter of one research study being right and one research study being wrong. There are many factors in the research study, meaning what kind of study was it? Was it a double-blind research study, which is the gold standard? Was it a meta-analysis, which compares all kinds of research? How many subjects were in that research? Research is weighted, so it's not just like one is right and one is wrong.
No.
You can absolutely have two studies saying contrarian things, but one of them did far more rigorous things to get their response, and that matters.
Yeah, but you can also, and I agree with you, research can be wrong too. People can have malicious reasons to do research and have imperfect findings because they've intended it to be that way. I'm conceding to the fact that both of these research data points are objectively in good faith presents it to the public. What I'm telling you is that you ask me, why do I lean more towards one than the other? I'm conceding that they both are fair, but then I have to go off of my lived experience. Let me give you an example. If you've been a clinician doing your job for 20 plus years, you have a study that says that black people are not treated poorly whatsoever in your field, and you have one that says black people are treated imperfectly all the time, more consistently. You give them both fair weight as if these are good faith attempts to present information. You have to then rely on your personal experience to say
that is, you keep saying that is not
weighs
accurate.
more.
No, you don't have to then rely on your own personal experience. You have to look at what the data says. Let me give you a prime example. If you are a data analyst for a company and your job is to look at data all day, every day, to come up with solutions on how the company can function at the highest level as efficient as possible. Your job as the data analyst is going to be to apply the study that gives you the best result to allow that company to run as best as it can and to run as efficient as it can. You don't take your anecdotal experience and apply it just because it's your anecdotal experience, because your anecdotal experience is going to negate the study. It's going to negate what you do. You're hired to do a job to get the best results. Your anecdotal experience is not necessarily the best results of the situation. And that's a problem that I have with Officer Brandon Tatum and those of his ilk. The fact that there's a lot of dudes that you can't tell shit. That's why, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I first came to YouTube, I used to be on any and every panel. Every time somebody dropped their link, I go up there and I partake in a part of the situation. You know what I'm saying? But it just came a day where I just got tired of going back and forth with ninjas. And I'm like, you know what? These ninjas ain't never gonna learn. They are not capable of listening to comprehend. All they want to do is listen to argue, listen to go back and forth. Listen to respond negatively to what you have to say. You could say the most profound thing and they're going to have a response for it because they just can't concede to when somebody has a better solution or a better response to whatever the discussion is. They just can't do it. They can't acknowledge sometimes that they're not right about everything, and sometimes they're wrong. They can't acknowledge the fact that sometimes people have more information than they have. So I just got to a fact that, you know what? I say, you know what? I'm only going to go in spaces where the conversation is really just is moderated really well. And I'm not even going to go to places and waste my time arguing. Because when I have conversations with people, it's not to argue. I have conversations with people for information. I have conversations with people because it's a thought-provoking process. I like having conversations that provoke, that challenge me to critically think. And critically thinking is something that a lot of people they're not able to do that. They just have like this one-track mind. They're not open-minded, man. Let's go. Shout out to Bridget in the building.
I think that's the way people, you can't, like,
well, I'm going to tell you.
For instance, I have never experienced racial encounters on the police department ever by any of the officers. Most of the officers that I know that work in primarily black neighborhoods on the Georgia police officers, I actually mentored one of them. They're saying the same thing, that no, dude, majority of our encounters are not racist encounters. My white colleagues are not racist against black people. It's a rare thing to happen. So all of the people I know, all of the experience I have, when I look at the two data points, objectively, I'm saying that I believe in the Harvard study, a professor who did an incredible study, who balanced and weighed all of the data. I'm saying that I lean more towards believing what he's saying because that's also my experience.
Due to time, I have one more question I want to ask you, so we're going to move on to a different subject. But I am going to make this point about research. I am a consumer and producer of research. My entire field is based upon evidence-based research. I have to read it constantly to do my work. So if I read a study that says something like a particular therapeutic intervention is useful, and then another study that says that same particular therapeutic intervention is not useful, you are making the argument that I have to go on my own lived experience. But that is not true. Hold on, I'm making a point, and then we're moving on to the next topic.
Okay.
You're making the argument that now I have two contrarian but credible
See, even the psychotherapist is saying exactly what I just said. He's saying exactly what I just said about applying his lived experience when you have data that's suggesting that you should do something. Even he just saying exactly what I just said.
research studies saying different things. So now I have to rely on my own personal experience. And the truth is, I have to go into the study and say, how many subjects did they have?
We're not to that point. I'm not saying an illegitimate study. I'm saying two legitimate studies from different perspectives.
I'm saying legitimate studies still have different levels. Do you know what a power ranking is? Legitimate studies have power rankings. So
yes,
we know.
But you do not know if the study that I'm referring to, the Harvard study, is more powerful or less powerful than the one that you presented. So what I'm saying is, let's just give both.
So
of them
you don't know
weight.
that the study. You don't. But that's not how that works. You don't know. You don't
You
know
are
the other studies
well,
power ranking either.
let's do this. Let's both evaluate both of them. Then we'll come back and say which one is imperfect.
100%.
But this is what I'm saying. You can say
It's not about imperfect. It's about who was more rigorous in their study.
If a person say that you're interviewing a person in this environment is not conducive for the best interview for therapists, and you're saying. And another study says, no, you can't interview a person in this environment. And you go, well, I get what they're both are saying. They both have credible research that they've done. But my experience is that when I interview people in this environment, I get good results. Like when people say, should you medicate a person with Percocet or should you medicate a person with this? There's holistic approaches and then there's medical approaches. You, at some point, you have to say, based on my information that I have derived from doing this for 20 years, this works, although this study is claiming that it does not work. That's a fair assessment.
That is not a fair assessment. You are using the word objective, but then demonstrating bias.
You have people that say that if you, well, a person can do a research on this. You can have a person that says you handcuff this way, which is the most appropriate way to handcuff without violence. You have another person that say no, that's not the way that you handcuff. You can handcuff this other way. You can be subjective in the way you think handcuffing should be done in order to be the most efficient and proficient in what you do. Both could be accurate, but other people can prefer to do a certain act because they've done it for 20 years and it works.
So I'm gonna I want to move on to the next topic due to time. But I do not believe you are an accurate consumer of research, given the way you are describing research.
I disagree with you, and I don't believe that you're accurate.
Fair.
I'm gonna agree with the psychotherapist. I also agree that Brandon Tatum is not what was the word that he used?
Fine. That is totally fine. Given the way you are describing, but I do not believe you are an accurate consumer of research.
Yeah, I also do not believe that Brandon Tatum is an accurate consumer of research. Why? Because he wants to argue against research, right? So, and he's a very subjective person. He just refuses to acknowledge information because he wants to be right. Truth Seeker in the chat says he loves to argue and overtalk people. He should listen sometimes. He should do a lot more. And you know what's funny is I always thought Officer Tatum was older than I always thought he was like 45 or 46, 47. He's only 39 years old. Like he's only like 2 years older than me, like a year and a half older than me. Because I'll be 38, God willing, in like a couple weeks. So he's only like a year and some change older than me, which is crazy, man. I always thought he was in his mid 40s. He's only 39. You know what I'm saying? And even myself, right? Like, yes, I went to college and all of that kind of stuff, right? But just keeping it real, the education of the world and the education of school is two different things. You can read all the books and still not really have a clue about life. So, yes, it's important to get your education, learn, and all that kind of stuff, but you also can't refuse to acknowledge the lessons that life teaches you as well. Yeah, Bridget says he's arguing against an expert. Yeah, he's arguing against the expert. That's like a patient arguing against the doctor that went to school to be a doctor. It's ridiculous, right? It's crazy, man. It's this dude, Brandon Tatum, is embarrassing, man. And he's a weirdo, man. And anybody that support, and typically I don't really bash people for who they support and like, because people could do whatever they want to, but I'm gonna make the exception, man. I'm gonna make the exception this time. If you support Brandon Tatum, you weird, man. You just a weird person, man. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't get it, and I don't understand it, man. If you support Brandon Tatum, you a weirdo. You's a weirdo, man. You's a weirdo. Cause I can't get jiggy with the shit, man.
Given the way you are describing research,
I disagree with you, and I don't believe that you're accurate.
Fair. That's
Okay.
fine. That is totally fine. I am happy to do exactly what you suggested. We will both consume research and then come back and say, here's what we found, and we can explain the research to one another. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, let's be fair. All right, last question, and they get me out here.
The last question. Are you familiar with the term internalized racism?
I don't know what the definition would be in a clinical way, but I can deduce what internalized racism would be. But
what would you say that it is?
I've heard people.
Well,
I've heard people say
go ahead.
I've heard people say internalized racism is. Well, let me let you explain it, because I don't want to confuse or conflate two different things. But go ahead and explain it, and then we can talk about it.
So normally, people conflate the idea of internalized racism with self-hatred. And I have seen people say, and you alluded to it earlier, people say he hates his blackness. People say he hates his own skin, et cetera, et cetera. That's actually not accurate per the accurate definition of internalized racism.
Right.
Internalized racism is, I've adopted the mentality and ideas of the colonizer. So a more accurate description of the word would literally be
let's
internalized colonizer.
Do you think that I fit in one of these statements?
I'm asking you, do you think you fit? Do
No,
you think that
no,
the
I
term
don't.
internalized racism towards you fits?
No, and I'm glad I didn't try to guess what the meaning was, because I believe I conflate the two. If you're saying that internalized racism is adopting a perspective of the colonizer, 100,000%, that's not my perspective. That doesn't apply to me. If you're saying that I have self-hate, no, 100%.
I did not say
No, I'm not saying you did. Let me correct it. If the phrase of self-hate is not applied to me either. So internalized racism and self-hate does not apply to me. So you believe that one of those apply to me?
I do. I do believe the term internalized racism.
Exactly. Thank you, Doc. You know what I mean? Thank you, clinical expert, clinical psychotherapist expert. Exactly. I definitely believe that the internalized racism, it definitely applies to him. He can say that he doesn't hate himself all he wants to. You feel what I'm saying? Like, yeah, definitely internalized racism. It definitely applies to you, sir. I don't care what you say. There's no way you can convince me that you're not internally racist against yourself. I'm sorry. There's nothing that you can say to convince me of that, man. Let's go. Hit the like button.
Racism.
Now, we got to. I know we run a long time, but like, you're saying that I have adopted the perspective of the colonizer.
Yes. Give
me an example. It got to be quick, because I know we run a long time. Where would you derive that I've adopted the perspective of the colonizer? And can you explain real quickly who that person is, or who that group of people are in America today?
I'll give you a very specific example. You said that you don't believe slavery stole money from the black community.
I did. That's not what I said. I said you cannot evaluate if slavery stole money. No, because if racism stole money, because money wasn't even on the table. It's not like slaves could even make money. So you can't say they stole something they never had a chance to make. That's what I was referring to. It's not like black people had money and then it was stolen from them when they were introduced into slavery, and then it could potentially.
See, this is how you know. This is how you know that a person says some bullshit when somebody brings up something that they said and then they just immediately start explaining. They just immediately start talking 100 miles an hour. Let's hear that again. So let's hear the therapist ask the question and then listen to how fast that Officer Raccoon Tatum starts responding to what the therapist said to him.
They have been, not like black people, slaves could even.
I'll play the
Did that's not
example. You said that you don't believe slavery stole money from the black community.
I did. That's not what I said. I said you cannot evaluate if slavery stole money. No, because if racism stole money, because money wasn't even on the table. It's not like slaves could even make money. So you can't say they stole something they never had a chance to make. That's what I was referring to. It's not like black people had money and then it was stolen from them when they were introduced into slavery, and then it could potentially have been given back to them. They never had the earning potential as being slaves. So nothing was stolen from them. Now, opportunities were not provided for them after slavery in an adequate way, but you can't say something was stolen that was never available to them.
So to be clear, you're saying black people never had anything, so thus it couldn't be stolen. Is that correct?
In slavery, the ones who were slaves, who was purchased as a slave, had nothing to gain or had nothing to, they had no possessions to hold on to because they were slaves. They weren't even considered persons, humans. They were property, like animals. They had no money to obtain or to give up or to relinquish. They had no choice in it. So that you can't compare that.
So again, I just want to be very clear on what I'm hearing. You're saying that slaves had no property, so thus it couldn't have been stolen.
Whoa. What's that?
Sorry, y'all. Got a quick commercial break. Make sure y'all hit that like button and subscribe.
Okay, that is factually inaccurate. We know that from slave documents that they did have money. They were allowed at times to earn money.
Hold on. Let's talk about it because I want to be very clear about this. I studied this in college. Now you're talking about, I'm perceiving the slaves that are on.
See, listen, you see what I'm saying? Like, see, this is the problem when you just deny facts. When you just deny facts, you're denying reality. When you deny facts, you're denying reality. And it doesn't matter what Officer Tatum says at this point. Like, he doesn't have an adequate response to what the therapist is saying. Like, let's listen to that question and response again.
The Plant College. Now,
let's that from slave documents that they did have money. They were allowed at times to earn money.
Let's talk about it because I want to be very clear about this. I studied this in college. Now you're talking about, I'm perceiving the slaves that are on the plantation that were not able to work. They not like Harriet Tubman, who was married and she worked and she was married and her husband was a free black man. I'm not talking about Harriet Tubman. I'm talking about other slaves who were in slavery, who had no possessions of property. They were not allowed to work. They didn't work in the house. They weren't able to purchase their freedom. None of that. I'm talking about those people. I'm not talking about people who were house slaves, people who were servants in slavery, people like Harriet Tubman towards the end of her life, where she actually lived with her husband, who was a free black man and able to work. Some of her family members were free. And so I'm not talking about those particular slaves. So when you look at those particular slaves, some of which who were blacks who owned slaves, like I'm not considering those people. I'm considering people who had no opportunity to work, therefore they had nothing to build or take away from.
So that I can be abundantly clear, I believe you're just demonstrating internalized racism, because when I said, I'm going to tell you, I asked you twice, can you be very clear? Are you saying this? And twice you said yes. And then when I gave you contrary information, you widened it. I'm not considering
I widened it because I believe that the conversation needs to be deeper than the surface level. Did they gain money or not? Because there's different phaseology, there's different phases, there's different people that were in different phases of slavery. Slavery was not all one thing. There were people who were slaves who worked. There were people who were slaves who were given an opportunity to purchase their freedom. There were people who were black, who were once slaves, who then were free and then owned slaves. We can have a broader discussion about slavery. I'm saying the ones who did not have an opportunity whatsoever, that didn't even have a chance at having any possessions, could not have possessions taken away from them. If you want to go through black people in general, we have to then talk about black people who own slaves. We have to then talk about the first legal slave owner in American history, which was Anthony Johnson. We have to talk about all.
And again, that's not true. Anthony Johnson was not the first slave owner in American history. He may have been the first black slave owner in American history, but he was not the first slave owner in American history. And this is why I have a channel, so that I can play these videos and I can educate the youth and I can educate the masses. Because just like Brandon Tatum, I went to college right here in Arizona. Zone also went to college right here in Arizona as well. So this is what happens This is why this is what happens when people spew nonsense. This is why I have a channel, so that I can correct the nonsense when I hear it. The primary reason for me getting an education was not to be educated. The primary reason for me getting an education is so that when I hear bullshit, I can respond appropriately to it. And I can educate the youth, and I can make sure that we don't have any false narratives going out here. See, he went to school to be a police officer. I went to school so that when I hear bullshit, I could correct this bullshit. I went to school so that when I was raising my children, I could tell my children the right information that they needed to know. And I can educate other people with the right information. See, I didn't go to school to get some job and, you know what I mean, and be a part of the game, the corporate game. I went to school to actually get knowledge, and so that I could see what these institutions are teaching, so that I could actually get the knowledge and then combat the information with my own education. That's why I went to school. I didn't go to school to be no police officer. I didn't go to school for no job. Me going to school was strategic, because I know it's going to be young black boys and black girls out here that's going to be fed a lot of bullshit. And this is why they need somebody like Zone. When they're having a conversation with me, I could tell them what it really is. Because all the stuff that they learn, I've been learned. The college that they going to go to, I went to that college. The curriculum that they learning in college, I went through that same curriculum. So I can have a conversation with you on a different level than somebody like a Brandon Tatum, or somebody that thinks that just because they have a college degree that they know everything. And I'm actually going to go back to school to get my degree in business. So yeah, don't play with me, because I'm one of the wrong ones to play with. Anyway, let's go.
All the black people who purchased their freedom and who also purchased other people's freedom in slavery. Those who never was a slave in the field. Those who always, in slavery had a different perception or a different position in slavery. So it's a dynamic discussion. Our premise was people who had absolutely no opportunity whatsoever should not be evaluated as the same as those who had opportunity. So the conversation was post-slavery. Focusing on after slavery was abolished, where do we go from here?
Respectfully, I don't see a point in talking about the details, because you keep moving it instead of.
I'm not moving it. You want to broaden up the conversation. You asked me a very basic perspective.
Clearly, what did you say? You said yes twice, and then I said, "But what about this?" And then you moved it.
And then I realized you want to broaden the conversation, okay. So I broadened the conversation.
Fair. Do the time.
No, actually, Officer Raccoon Tatum, you're the one that's broadening the conversation, because you keep talking about all of these different aspects of slavery. Listen, let me tell you, if you're black and you had an ancestor in slavery, slavery was bad. Point blank, period. Slavery was not a good thing. Point blank, period. They try to sit here and they try to make it seem like, if it wasn't for slavery, America wouldn't be America. America wouldn't be what it is. And I say that's bullshit. I say America would be greater than it has ever been if slavery was never existed. If slavery had never existed in America. In my opinion, slavery has slowed down the progress of America. In my opinion, I think if slavery never happened in America, we would be so much further along in society. That's what I think about slavery. But somebody like Brandon Tatum, who has a college degree, a higher education, a police officer, conservative Republican, all of these conservative talking points, who thinks he knows everything. See, he don't think like I think, because he's been indoctrinated, and he doesn't have the ability to think outside the box and see things from a real true perspective instead of a conservative Republican perspective. Because I think that 300, 400 years ago, when the foundation of America was being built, if we could have worked together as a people, all of this bullshit ass racism and prejudice and all of these stereotypes and all of this crazy social engineering working against black people, minorities in America, all of that, it would probably still exist, but it wouldn't be to the level that it is right now. And see, another bad component of slavery is one thing that slavery existed, but then you have the offspring of the slave masters that exist today. And unfortunately, a lot of their parents haven't deprogrammed the old slave mindset of entitlement out of their brains. So that's the residual effect of the slavery. But somebody like Brandon Tatum ain't gonna tell you that. Because this is what happens when you clicked in with the Democrat and the Republican Party. Because if you have a mind of your own, you get isolated and you get kicked out the circle. But me, I don't care about none of that, man. I'm grassroots. I'm independent. I got my own mind, my own thoughts, and I'm gonna say what I want to say, point blank, period. And if Brandon Tatum or any one of these conservative douchebags don't like what I'm saying and want to challenge, listen, I'll drop a link for you. You come on the show. We can chop it up. I'll even drop a phone number in the chat. You can call me. We can chop it up on the show. All right, let's go.
Can I ask you two more quick questions?
Okay.
One of them, are you familiar with the phrase moral disengagement?
Moral disengagement, no.
So would you acknowledge, regardless of whatever opinions you hold, you're allowed to hold whatever opinions you want, would you acknowledge that some of the messages that you present cause harm to people?
Since the dawn of man.
Sorry, y'all. Got a quick commercial break here. Make sure y'all hit that like button. We're coming down to the last few minutes of the debate here.
Yeah, no, we got to be more detailed. You saying emotional harm? You saying physical harm? Are you saying people are harmed unjustifiably? They consider to be harmed by what I say? So
I'm saying that the your opinion can be your opinion.
I have no intent to harm people by what I say.
One second.
I have no intent.
I don't want to be overtalked.
And people should not be harmed by what I say.
I don't want to be overtalked, and I don't want to have to put you on mute. I think some of the stuff you communicate on the platforms you do causes harm to people.
In what way?
Emotional harm causes them trauma and stress to hear your message.
Okay, that's a personal thing. That has nothing to do with what I'm presenting in my the way I intend to deliver it. It's not my fault that somebody's receiving personal harm in their own perspective because they don't like me saying that a black person was wrong. They feel harmed because I interview somebody. That's not legitimate.
No,
I'm saying these are the complaints that I'm hearing.
Let me ask you a more specific question. If I presented you with evidence of a human being whose life has been harmed by the messages that you've put out, would you change or would you do anything different on how you're putting messages out?
Well, it depends because there's no intent for me to harm anybody. You give me a specific example, meaning that if somebody legitimately came to me and said, hey, man, when you said this, it really hurt me and it was materialized, I may consider, depending on what
I'll give you an example right now, Nolan Wells. Carmelo Anthony. Nolan Wells. The fact that you're doing these interviews with those dudes when there's an open investigation going on, trying to make it seem like nothing happened when we don't know what really happened, to me, that's doing harm to me. Trying to make it seem like those dudes are innocent when we don't really know if they're really innocent. When it's already been confirmed that they were drinking. Not only were they drinking, they're drinking underage, and there was possibly allegedly drugs involved. When Nolan Wells was at Horn Island, and you're trying to spew this narrative that there's no foul play, well, we don't know if there was foul play or not. To me, that's harmful.
I said, I can't not tell the truth because it hurts you. But if it's something I said, I can rephrase it and it actually caused some harm to somebody and they brought it to my attention. I'm open to that. But for somebody getting upset because they don't like that I criticize people who are having poor behavior because they are black, that's not my fault that people are emotional. And the same thing is some of the things you said. I don't think it's your fault that you said something that hurt my feelings. That's irrelevant. Like, is your intent to hurt my feelings? No. I just have to be a grown man and say, I don't like what you said about me. Let's have a conversation. But my intent with my content is just to tell the truth. If people's feelings are hurt because they don't like the truth, then I'm okay with that. And I know we got to run because I got to do a filming.
I just have literally one more minute, one more question.
Okay.
And it's about Teslin Figaro. When you are debating and having conversation about issues related specifically to the Nolan Wells case, I've noticed that she has been requesting an interview multiple times. Are you Teslin Figaro?
I don't know.
Are you willing to sit down with her?
I don't know who that is.
If I connect the two of you, would you be willing to have a conversation with Teslin?
I have a conversation with anybody. It just depends. I got to know who this person is.
She is an attorney. She is working in the Nolan Wells case.
Is she the lady in the comment section?
I don't know if she's a lady in comment
that you responded
section.
to.
I think
she said something like, "I don't know why Brandon won't debate me." Is that her?
I think her name is Teslin Figaro.
Is that who you're talking about? You responded to her in the comments. She said, "I don't know why Tatum won't debate me." No, she said, "I don't know why Tatum won't debate me or something, but he debates you." And you said you're gonna answer a question. Is that she's a black lady?
She's a black lady, correct? Would you? I think
we're talking about the same person. I know who she is. I just didn't know her name. But it depends, man. She's super ghetto and disrespectful.
No. She's not super ghetto, nor disrespectful.
I've been on an interview with her.
I understand that. She's super educated.
She's not very respectful. She talks crazy. I may still consider talking to her.
That's not true. I think the chick, Teslin, I think she's actually very smart. And she don't play. Like, she has a witty way of, you know what I mean, being able to deal with you. So I don't think that she's ghetto just because she, talks a particular way sometimes. But I would love to see that interview. I really would. I think that would be a good interview. I hope that interview happens.
But I just want to put it out there. She was wondering why I didn't debate her or nothing. Some people are not acting in good faith. And I don't want to get into an argument with somebody and they cussing and acting a fool. I feel like you've been respectful, although I disagree with you. You've been respectful in your commentary towards me, although I disagree with it. You haven't called me out of my name and you cursing and acting up. And so that's why I was willing to talk to you. But other people that are cussing and trying to get a gotcha moment, I'm not really interested. Like people got to realize I have 8 million people that follow me. I have an incredible platform. I don't really gain anything by going on other people's platforms. I just respect you enough to say I would like to have a conversation. And
that's not true. You have 8 million people that follow you or whatever. But if you didn't gain anything by going on other people's platforms, then why go on other people's platforms? You know what I mean? You're just contradicting yourself. You're going to say you don't have anything to gain by going on other people's platforms when not only are we seeing you on this platform by Elliott Connie, but we've also seen you on Nancy Grace. And we've also seen you on a couple of other news outlets. So if you had nothing to gain by going on other people's platforms, then why do you continue to go on other people's platforms? It's contradicting. You can have 8 million followers and nobody watch you. This is why you have to go on other people's platforms, because people are watching other people. You can have 8 million people following you and nobody's watching you. This is why you got to go on other people's platforms to try to get your message and spew your propaganda. Because if you didn't have to go on other people's platforms, you wouldn't go on other people's platforms.
I just want to go.
That talk crazy about me every day. I don't know. I got to consider if I would talk to her, because I don't know if it would be productive.
Okay, I gotta let you go, but I will gonna go on the record and say I think you should sit down and have a conversation with Teslin, because she is just as informed and connected to this case and has interviewed just as many people as you have, and I think that's an important thing. So, Mr. Tatum, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Has Kyrie texted?
Okay. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it. And as you can see, It's daytime now. The sun is up. When I started this live stream, it was pitch black outside, dark. You know what I'm saying? It was what, like 3:30 in the morning. Now it's 6 a.m. You know, so this was a long live. We've been here almost 3 hours, man. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and hit that notification bell. Make sure you guys sub to my other channels. Zone 864 Live, Lounge 864, Zone 864 Media, Zone 864 Sports, and also Zone 864 on Rumble, and Zone 864 on Zone 864 TV on Rumble, Zone 864 TV on Kick as well. So we expanding, and anybody else, any content creators that have a channel, I suggest y'all do the same thing. Start create different channels on different platforms. Don't just have one channel, man. You gotta have multiple ways of getting out your message. You see what I'm saying? So we live on 4 different places on YouTube right now. We're not just live on Zone 864 TV or Zone 864 Live. We live at a few different places. So we trying to pull in traffic, you know what I mean, always possible. But I appreciate everybody for hanging out with me this morning now. Now it's morning. And I look forward to doing this again soon. But until then, I will see y'all next time. And I will see y'all in the next live stream. All right? Peace.